the hamster wheels, because yeah, what does it mean to be in a hamster wheel? And and yeah, what does it mean? And also what, what solutions are out there usually that are being offered. And yeah, we'll just go a bit into that, because usually under a hamster wheel, we understand that, I don't know, we're like in a career and we have like a goal. In a way, I mean, there's different kind of hamster wheels, but let's say the most basic and the most common one, I would say, is that there's a goal. Mostly it's given by society or by a dream that we have that we say is from us, but it's actually coming from society or from some kind of influence that we have from outside. And um, and then we basically just run in this hamster wheel, which means we get up every day, we go to work, we I don't know, act in a certain way in society. So for me, that's also a hamster wheel. Hamster wheel is not just, let's say, being stuck in a job or being stuck in a relationship, but it's also in a way how we think about the world, how we think about ourselves. And yeah, that's also a hamster wheel. And so what happens is, in a way, there's something in this wheel, in this hamster wheel, that makes us run. So we continue running and running and running. And, it's almost like an autopilot, right? We just continue running, running, running. And if we don't even stop to ask, why we're running, is there something in for us? Because it feels like there are some kind of forces or a drive that just makes us run, but we never actually are aware why we're running. And even if we asked ourselves, no, what is your goal? Like, why are you running? We would be like, I don't know, that's just how life is. I have to have a job. And we're very good at explaining and justifying why we do certain things. Hi, Kiran. I can anything you say. Okay. Can you hear us now, Kiran? Um, so yeah, basically that's what's happening every day. We're stuck in a hamster wheel, and most of the times, I would say, we are not even aware we're stuck in a hamster wheel. Okay, I tried to adjust my mic and audio, but okay. So I hope you can hear us, Karen. Anyway, so, and we are stuck in a hamster wheel, but we're not even aware we are stuck in a hamster wheel. And that means that, like an example, let's say an example, I have spoken to people that, let's say, I asked them, hey, how was your vacation? And they said, yeah, it was great. I was gone for 1 week, but after 1 week, it was a bit too long, and I wanted to come back, because, yeah, I really like my work. And when I speak to them a bit more, when I see what's actually happening, it's a bit like, yeah, they're so used to, working, functioning in that hamster wheel, that they're even bored when they cannot work anymore. Although, in a way, it's true what they're saying. They're really looking back and looking forward to going back to work. But at the same time, it's almost like they have lost the passion for life, or they don't even know what to do anymore, right? So that's one kind of hamster wheel, and I think the most common one, where you're stuck. We don't even know why we're running. We just say, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. What else should I do? I don't have any options. And then we just keep running, and then we keep running until, let's say, some people have a midlife crisis at some point. They ask some basic questions, what am I doing? And then it's already too late. So that's, let's say, a very common one, very basic, and, let's say, in a way, a superficial one. But then let's say there are, let's say, for advanced hamster wheel. That's the thing, so this is the most common one. But then let's say we have the idea of, oh, I'm stuck in my job, I should do something else. And then we ask ourselves, what do I really want in life? What is it that brings out my passion and what is it that I really should do in my life. And then this actually many times becomes just another hamster wheel. Why? Because because we think so. The definition in a way of a hamster wheel is by doing something, we think we can reach a certain degree of happiness or a fulfillment. So it feels like there's always a lack, and we try to fulfill this lack. As I said before, it's just totally chaotic, and we're basically driven by subconscious, unconscious things that we have no idea about. And that's the first step. And then we get an idea and say, hey, guess what? I have a free choice. I can create my own future. I can create my own life, and we can manifest it. And then I can say, okay, you know what? I don't have to be stuck in this job. I have a great idea. I will work in something that I really love. And we pretend like, it's our choice, and we have, and we just have to try hard enough. Hi, Kira.
Hi, finally I managed to
okay, great.
join.
Okay, great. Good to have you.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to mute everyone. If you have a question, just write a comment or just raise your hand, and you can ask a question, okay? So anyway, so this just becomes like another hamster wheel, right? To hear, hey, guess what? I can choose to go my own path and choose the job that I want and find out my passion, and then just do only things in that passion, in that regard. So that's for me another hamster wheel, because what happens is we have still this goal. It's maybe a higher goal in some regard, but we still have that goal of believing, okay, I have a lack, and by doing something, by finding my passion, I will finally be fulfilled. And once I have a job with, which is in line with the passion, then everything is fine and I'm fulfilled. That's sort of still a hamster wheel for me, because in a way we're still holding a carrot in front of us and keep running, but we will never get there. And that's and the funny thing is that we always believe that, no, this time it's not a hamster wheel, because this time, this is for sure, when we achieve this goal, this is for sure it, and this could be regarding a passion that we want to find. This could be regarding a relationship that we're finally in. This could be regarding, I don't know, having enough money or anything. You can fill it with anything. So this just becomes another hamster wheel. And then there are other hamster wheels in my regard, which, says like the whole, let's say, business or industry of self-improvement. For me, it's exactly the same. So it's just another hamster wheel, meaning, look, I'm here right now, I'm Benjamin, and I have these skills, and I have these faults and everything. And I've heard I can improve myself, and I can get rid of my weaknesses, and I can become a better version of myself. And then once I achieve that, then everything will be great. And guess what? I will, post great pictures on Instagram, I'll flex my muscles, and I will always find validation, from people that I care about and that I want to be validated by. So this just becomes another hamster wheel, where I keep running for my goal to be validated or fulfilled or fill that lack, but it's just taken another shape of, of looking great in front of others, or whatever you want to call it. So that's what I'm saying. We're jumping from hamster wheel to hamster wheel, just under another name. So another one, and when you look into, sometimes, self-improvement or self-development, it can be great for, for many people, and it can be like, in a way, also an entry, right? But I feel like many times, it stops there, because it gets sometimes even more confused. And I will come into that towards the middle or the end, because I think it's a very important one. But then let's say the other hamster wheel, and sometimes I could say it's another hamster wheel, or you could also say it's just the same hamster wheel, but we're trying to run with a different speed, or run more conscious or more mindful, So spirituality or mindfulness, in a way, is another hamster wheel, or is another way how we run in the hamster wheel. Because, I mean, look, being more mindful than less mindful, it could be a great thing, right? But ultimately, it's another thing that we take on and say, hey, look, I have to be more mindful. If I'm more mindful, I will be fulfilled at some point. But it's always, it's not the thing that is, let's say, not so great to have, but it's more how we approach it. So let's say mindfulness as such is great, because I don't know, you become more aware, more conscious about things. But then what we do is this obscuring factor in us that takes mindfulness and takes it as a thing, like as a rat race again, as a hamster wheel, and it believes it has to be more mindful than the other people, and it has to show off how mindful it is, and comparing and judging and so on. So it makes spirituality or mindfulness or meditation or yoga as another hamster wheel, just trying to be fulfilled, and just taking this whole system over again. And so all of those hamster wheels that I have described now, they have one thing in common. What I said earlier is there's a goal, and we believe by achieving that goal, we will be more fulfilled. But in my regard, that's the hoax. That's exactly the hoax that's happening. And the hoax, let's dive into this, because I think that's the obscuring factor in everything. And that's basically, I mean, some people, we speak sometimes about the ego, right? And the ego has, let's say, it doesn't have a great reputation, but I think it's not the ego that is, let's say, this obscuring factor that I'm talking about here, but it's this sense of self that believes it has an ego. And that's one. So there's the ego, and for the ego we give it all the attributes that we think are the bad ones, and the greed, and being aggressive and all this stuff. But then we always think that who we are has this ego. But what I'm saying in this, in a way, is become aware of that which claims to have an ego. That's one step back, and that's like a sense of self. It's not even a self as such, but it's a sense of self. It feels real. It seems to be real, right? And that's exactly what I'm questioning, because I've heard so many people say, for instance, I mean, that's a common thing, let's say, in spirituality or in self-improvement. It's like, oh yeah, I have been meditating a lot, and I feel like I'm much more tolerant, and I speak more beautifully, and I'm more calm, and I only have this beautiful words for people, and I show unconditional love, and we take that very seriously. But I believe what happens actually is, those are attributes or traits, I believe, like joy, unconditional love, and peace, this ultimate peace, that's inherent in us. That's, if you believe me, that's the quality of the screen that I sometimes refer to, right? And the action figure in this analogy is claiming those attributes, the unconditional love, tolerance for everyone, acceptance, and everything, is the action figure is claiming it and making it its own. And that's where the trouble starts to happen, is exactly there. Because what happens is, you are the ultimate happiness and joy. Then we identify ourselves as the sense of self in form of the action figure that says, I have an ego, I have this. It tries to, I don't know, tries to attract all good things in life, and tries to push away and deny all bad things. And then it claims to be that ultimate love and joy. And that's exactly, have you, like, when you're in this, it feels like a humble, no, it feels like a humble thing. It feels like a great thing to do, right? Be like, hey, you know what? I went to this retreat. I do yoga now, and I'm more, I speak more with consciousness. I have more love for myself and for others. But for me, as I said, while this may have great benefits for the body mind, for me it doesn't feel real. Like it feels like there's a hoax in there. It's like a deep hoax, and that's exactly what I'm sort of explaining. Is there's this, and it's not about that yoga, meditation, mindfulness is bad, not at all. But it's this claiming that I am now the one who's, you know, doing yoga. I am the one. I am the one doing this. I'm better than this. I'm judging. So it's that sense of self I was talking about, and this is actually the the root cause in a way for the suffering, because that sense of self will never be fulfilled. It will never reach its goal. And that's exactly what I describe in Running in the Hamster Wheel, because guess what? You know, the title uh, of the series is called The Hamster Wheel is Not Motorized, meaning instead of running faster and running into other hamster wheels, it means you know it's enough to stop running. It's enough to question and say, hey, why am I running? Like, is there a need for it? Is it not enough to be what I am already? Is that not enough? And that's sort of the hamster. So I'm just seeing there's a few questions on Instagram. So Simran is saying, so we don't have to identify ourselves with anything. It's like, exactly, like if, you know, like take the analogy, and I think repetition in this is very helpful, I think, even if you heard the analogy before, but there are also some new people. So I like the analogy of the screen and the movie, right? So just for everyone again. So there's a screen, which is basically this analogy, which is who we are. And then there's the movie. And the movie is basically all the action, all the stories, all the action figures, which are basically Benjamins, Kirans, and, you know, many other people. And basically that's all what's happening in the movie, right? So it's the material world, everything. These are all objects because they can be perceived. And so usually we identify, like basically what has happened is the screen has forgotten, because it's so in a way into the story of the movie, the screen has forgotten, seemingly so, that it's the screen, and it has been, let's say, lost in the movie, and it's watching the movie and the story from a first person perspective, and it's fully identified, right? That's sort of how we grew up, and it's identified. And it's like, you know, if it was let's say on a stage, let's assume this is like a theater play and you're on stage, and let's say there's a couple that I don't know, that is in love with each other, right? So on the stage they're a couple and they're in love with each other, and then when the piece stops, they stop being identified, and it's like they have played a role, and they just let this role on the stage, and they get off the stage, and then they wouldn't kiss anymore and they wouldn't date anymore, right? Because it's a role. And I like this example because in life, you know, there's many roles that are being played by this action figure, but instead of letting it just be on the stage or in the movie, we are so identified with it that we believe it's about life and death here. And that's why, to your question, you know, so don't we have to identify with ourselves with anything? No, because what we are is already so. That's the beauty. Like, look, what happens is the problems, in a way, from a certain perspective, they come into play when we identify with something that we're not. And usually we identify with, you know, with this body mind as an entity, and we believe it has a reality on its own. And then what happens is, because that's an object, we interact with others from object to object. And that in itself makes any relationship extremely complicated. So to your question, we don't have to identify ourselves with anything, obviously, because the screen itself is the screen, and everything is happening within the screen. So there's no need to identify because we are already what we are. So for instance, I like this saying. It says, be what you cannot not be. And that sentence is very powerful because it doesn't say be what you can be or be the best you can be or be like a very conscious being or be vegan or whatever. But it says be what you cannot not be, and that's what you already are. And there's freedom in that. That's ultimate freedom. Because whether you believe, whether you want to identify or not, that's it. Whether there's no requirement necessary. You can't deny it, you can't accept it. It's beyond any concept, beyond anything that is imaginable. So yeah, we don't have to identify ourselves with anything. And there's another question, what is the difference between ego and sense of self? I mean, I'm never a big fan of, let's say, definitions as they're usually used, but in this example, but it's a fine and important differentiation. So I would say how I presented this, I said there's usually, we speak about an ego, right? And an ego for me is usually an attribute of the action figure, which are usually bad. Let's say all the greedy and the fear. And so we label all those sort of bad things that we don't want anymore. We say, oh, this is the ego. And whenever there's an action happening motivated by something, we blame it on the ego and we say, yeah, somehow it's me, but somehow not. But what I'm referring to here is not, because then there's the ego and there's us, right? That's sort of the normal everyday use. But what I'm saying in a way is there is something that claims to have the ego, and that I call the sense of self. And that is another thing that has been created. So that's not who we are, that's not the screen. The sense of self is basically the action figure. But what happens is, we usually look at the world from here, which is basically the sense of self. I say, oh, I went to this 14-day retreat, and now I'm speaking very softly and very consciously, and I only say good things, and I only have positive thoughts, right? But that's bullshit, and that's usually the starting point. But what I'm saying is the starting point is one layer behind, and it's about to question this sense of self. Is that really who we are? And what is behind the sense of self? And we cannot imagine something that we cannot objectify. A sense of self we can still objectify because it's someone, it's something. But what we are is not an object, it's not part of the movie. It's the screen. And in a way, in this example, the screen is the formless and it has no attributes. It's nothing. You cannot define it. You know how I think, even, I'm not religious, but even in the Bible they say like God doesn't have a face. You cannot define it. And that's what I think what we are. What we are is not definable. You can't speak about it. You cannot, it doesn't have an age. It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have anything. And that's the beauty of it. What you are cannot be defined. It cannot be spoken about. I mean, look, we get so obsessed with somebody's, what do other people think of us? What if nobody can speak about us? How obsessed can we be about what other people cannot speak about us? They can speak about us when we're fully identified with the action figure. Yeah, then we're like, oh my God. But that's the beauty. You can only be spoken about, and you only have to worry what other people think of you when you are identified as an image, which you have nothing to do with. So the beauty is, when we take this to be sincere, this statement that what we are cannot be defined, it cannot be spoken about, it cannot be perceived, it cannot be objectified, then guess what? That's freedom. That's true freedom. And that's exactly what I'm saying, coming back to these hamster wheels that I was describing. We hear like a sentence full of wisdom and say, wow, I don't know, if I can manifest my own life, or I can, I don't know, if I hang out with the people that are, I don't know, all very positive, then I will become positive. You know, all those things. But in my eyes, that has nothing to do with freedom at all, because that's just another dependency that we create. And for me, I was always only interested in, you know, in a absolute solution. And the absolute solution is available right here for everyone. And the good thing is we don't have to do anything to get there, because we are already there. And not even that, we don't even have to experience it, because we are the experience itself. And that's the good message, and that's the beauty of it. And again, you know, even such a great message we can hear. And you know what happens is there's two ways. When we hear this message as the action figure in the movie, we believe like, oh my God, really cool. We take it, and we take it on the level of, I can become that, like right away. It's like, you know, someone in the old movies, two cowboys, they pull the gun, and it's faster than pulling a gun. It's faster than the shadow. That's how fast this thing comes and says, okay, I hear the sentence, I am already what I'm looking for. And then what we hear this as the action figure, we're like, oh my God, one day I can become this love or this joy or this ultimate peace I heard of. That you see this mechanism, this is happening all the time. But what I'm saying is, this is like, you are it, that's it. That's it. There's no requirements necessary, there's no meditation requirement there. You don't have to go do yoga courses, you don't have to calm your mind, you don't have to be more mindful, because that which is not so mindful and that which needs to calm down has nothing to do with who you are. We are talking about action figures. There are so many action figures, and we always focus on improving, trying to improve the action figure. And the action figure is so tired of life, and is so tired of having tried everything, and it's trying to escape the movie, because it's fed up, and it's trying to become the screen as the action figure. And guess what? The action figure in the movie, it can never escape the movie. It's stuck in the movie. I was watching one. There was I don't know. It's an interesting movie. I don't know the name of it, but it was like people were sitting in the movie theater, and in the movie, so it was a movie. People were sitting in the movie theater, and then all of a sudden, uh, an actor, or like, yeah, an action figure from the screen came out to the movie theater, and it was sort of in the other dimension. But you know, this doesn't happen. It's not possible, and it doesn't need to happen. But what I'm saying is, that's exactly the hamster wheel that's happening all the time, and it's happening so fast that we don't see it. I, as Benjamin, I'm identified as this action figure, and I hear about, I can be more peaceful, I can be more happy, I can be liberated from all the suffering. And then, as this which I'm identified, I try to become the screen, because the attribute of the screen is exactly what we're looking for. And we are already that, but you see, the point is that it's more like about letting go of an identity versus identifying with something and then trying to become what you already are. And that's the hoax. That like that's it. You know, that's the message. There's everything else that we try to do is just an escape from what we already are. And guess what? You know, you may say, oh, but why do I not feel this? Why is this not my experience? I have to do something, no? But I believe that actually by doing something, we are actually seemingly going away from what we already are. So it's not about trying to do more and more and faster and harder and going to more retreats, but it's just to look and stand still and question, hey, is that like, who is trying to do this? Who am I? What am I doing? And that actually gets us in a way where we already are. It brings us home to the home we never left. And yeah, I think that's it. It's like, Ramana Maharshi, the guy from India, he said something like, presupposing the existence of a non-existing thing and then trying to get salvation for that non-existing thing. Isn't that by doing so, by trying to get salvation for that which does not exist, doesn't that bring us even further away from where we're going? You see, that's exactly that. Presupposing the action figure, that's what we're doing. We forget we're a screen, we presuppose the action figure, we're looking for a solution for the action figure, and by doing this, we give it a reality, which actually it doesn't have a reality on its own, but we're landing it in reality. And that's the whole hoax of the trick we're in. We can spend, I don't know, 10,000 hours on meditation, on yoga, on the holy scriptures, on everything. But as long as there's this claiming of this sense of self, of this action figure, trying to become better and benefit from it and taking something out of it, then it's all gone. That's exactly the mechanism that we're speaking about here. And I love pointing it out in the clearest way as possible, because I can see that so much suffering is generated for people who are on the spiritual path and they have like the enlightenment or liberation far like in front of them, and they think some elite people have achieved it and I have not, and one day I want to achieve it, and that's exactly in their way, nothing else. Because they don't need to go anywhere. And it's wrong to say, we hear sometimes, oh, you don't have to do anything, everything is perfect. But we see that statement that this is in regard to the movie, but the movie has nothing to do with that. So what I said earlier is, we hear that statement, you are already you are what you're looking for. If we hear that statement from the action figure, it will take it in a way, oh, I can become something, right? So it takes it in a completely different way. And if we hear the statement as the screen doesn't need to hear that statement because it's there already. So you see, that's the beauty of it, that from the perspective of the screen, we don't have to do anything. But from the perspective of the movie, there's always action. There are thoughts, there's positive thoughts, negative thoughts, and there's good things happening, bad things happening. The only thing that changes, when we recognize what we truly are, is that the action figure, it suffers less. There's no suffering. It doesn't mean that there's, I don't know, not pleasant things happening or pleasant things happening. This is not about, for the ego or the sense of self that we spoke about earlier. It's all about attracting the good things and pushing away and denying the bad things. That's part of the ego. And when it comes to liberation or enlightenment, we think it's the same. It's not. The liberation is here right now. That's it. There's no one ever to be liberated, because that action figure will never be liberated. But what happens is, in some way, it becomes aware, the screen becomes aware of itself, and there's a big relief for the action figure, because it no longer looks for validation within the movie. You see, that's the biggest change, and it's a huge change. So it no longer looks for validation, and it no longer tries to fill a lack that is not even there. It's, there's like none of this is happening. And yeah, so anyway, so there's a question on Zoom. I resonate with you. I have a question. The illusion and the separate self identification is so strong and powerful at times. Living the realization of who we truly are seems the real challenge. Any words of advice here? So yeah, that's a great question. So So again, just for the others, the illusion and the separate self-identification is so strong and powerful at times. Living the realization of who we truly are seems the real challenge. So, so from the perspective of the action figure, this is a very important and a very holy question, right? Because it's like, I think, it's like this. We say, hey, look, I sort of understand it, I resonate with it, but my experience right now, or let's say I had glimpses of it and I know I resonate, I know how it feels, but my everyday experience is usually more like, what we explained, it's a challenge, there's suffering, there's problems, and there's strong emotions and everything, right? And we have to handle things and so on. That's the perspective from the action figure, because you can look at the same thing from, let's say, the global perspective. And the global perspective, okay, let's have a look at this question from the screen, okay? So from the screen, what happens is there's a consciousness only knows consciousness. It only knows freedom. So from the perspective of the solution, let's say, there is no problem. And from the perspective of the solution, it's seeing clearly that our experience, our first-hand experience, is freedom. That's the experience that we have. And what happens is there's a story being told that, oh, I'm not there yet. And it can be very subtle and very unconscious. I'm not there yet. And, I have a glimpse of it, but I fall into it and I fall out of it. And this, if we have a glimpse of something and we feel like we can have it and we can lose it, that's the sense of self. And that's why this is very important to see, because it can go very, very, very subtle. You see the sense of self that we speak about. It claims even the most subtle thing. So the best, in a way, advice I can give is, in those moments when this belief or this thought comes up, just to hold on and question and say, like, look, usually what happens is the following. There's this thought coming. Let's say your consciousness, you're the screen. A thought comes, which is in the movie, and then what happens is it's taken to be real, and we follow the thought. And as soon as we follow it, we get lost in it and we give it a reality. We give it a meaning. And by doing this, we are giving this action figure a reality. So the best advice to do, or what to do in the situation, is to become firstly aware of this mechanism from the outside. The biggest advice I can give is, usually we are like looking from the perspective of the sense of self. And even there's a claiming and saying, no, I'm beyond that. I'm seeing it from the screen. That's sort of what this is even claimed. But the best way is to be humble and see, no, there's another layer behind. And I can even see that as a mechanism. And that's the sense of self. So what happens is, when we stop there, so when we become aware of this sentence, even saying, oh, but it's a great thing that you're expressing, because it's honest and it's true, right, from a certain perspective. But at the same time, it's important not to give it a reality and not to give it credit, because, as you said as well, it seems to be a real challenge, but it's never a real challenge. And that's important. So it's about seeing that those words, it's almost like, I think it's in the Jungle Book, there's a snake, and it looks at people and it hypnotizes people. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's almost like this. There's a thought coming, oh, I'm not there yet, it's not my experience yet, and then we go into it. It's always like we're hypnotized, and then we're like, oh yeah, it's true, we give up. And it's important to become aware of those moments. I also do coaching, and there's like two things which I think help in that regard. One is like I call it sometimes to prime ourselves. Meaning, I mean, you can sit down in silence, whatever you want to do, you can be in nature, and you prime yourself in the screen, like in a way, you are in this open energy, and you are what you are. And if you do this once a day or a few times a day, whatever, 1 minute, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, there's something great in this, because it comes from this space, where you are able to observe every object, thoughts, feelings, how they come and go. And there's a distance in a way. And that's what I call priming. But then, as important is the catching those mechanisms in the moment they happen. Because we may be aware of it now when we speak about it, but let's say we get off this call and then we, I don't know, see our family, and then we're like in something, or this thought comes, oh, still I haven't gotten it. But look, when you understand this, then I haven't gotten it, and then you try to find a solution after buying into the idea I haven't gotten it, that's too far. So you step forward and say, no, can I be 100% sure that I haven't gotten it? Then no, you have not. It's the same as, I talk about sometimes, like we have sometimes this feeling, oh, I'm not in the moment. And we know when we're more in the moment, when we're more present, we feel great, and we sort of aspire to be more in the moment, right? And then, we read books about it, and we go to seminars, how to be really in the moment. And then, we try hard and we do it, but then we fall into the moment and fall out of the moment. But that's not it. When it's possible to have something and lose something, that's not it. Because what I said earlier, be what you cannot not be. This is a constant. It's always so. And so regarding this example with the being in the moment, it's enough in that, like when I say, oh wow, yeah, I want to be more in the moment. Like somebody comes and says, hey, I can show you how to be in the moment. Sign up for this course. It's $10,000, and in 2 weeks you'll be more in the moment. So it sounds very attractive, but the art is to, when I get this offer, or have this thought, I want to be more in the moment, I realize it's not possible not to be in the moment. That's the immunity. And it's always coming back to that, because, there are so many thoughts. I'm not good enough. One day I want to have this. One day I still don't get it. It comes and goes. Those are all sentences. It can go in so many different ways, but it always comes back to whether we give this credit or whether we give this a reality. And that's it. So it's, instead of going into those ways, into those paths, and trying to find a solution there, it's extremely time consuming, and it takes years and years or decades, and we'll never get there. But the solution is much closer. It's right there with us. And it's not just that we don't experience, like, the sentence of saying, yeah, I get it, but I don't know how to implement it in my life, that thought is wrong. Like, that's a hoax. Because when we believe this thought, then it's over. Like, then we're looking for a solution and say, I'm here and I want to be there. So the let's say more effective approach is, when the thought comes up, which comes up for everyone, right? Oh, I wish I would not just understand it, but also be able to implement it in my life. And we're able to question that. That's it. That's the solution. And hold on there and say, hey, is that true? Can I be certain that it's true? And just entertain for a moment, no, this is not true, and don't go there. And when we do this with all those thoughts and all those feelings, you will see there will be a change happening. Like, there will be resistance of, oh no, but come on, I have to, it's good. That's how I learned how to drive, and that's how I learned this and that. But, there's something else that is taking over. There's a trust. We have, I think, in a way, a choice of putting the trust into this thought system, or putting the trust into what we already are. And I think yeah, there's no need to to try to get somewhere. Yeah, I think, but that's the whole hoax, and yeah, but it's in a way, there's like the head, the thinking and feelings as well is very strong, and we have learned to listen to them immensely, and there's an obsession for most people, and it's also being validated by society, to emotions and thoughts, and that's sort of what's rewarded in society. But what's not rewarded is like a voice inside us that's very soft, and that doesn't know right and wrong, that doesn't know later and earlier. And that's, it can be a soft voice, it can be just a space, and in a way we have forgotten to listen to that. It's very soft and very subtle. The other voice is much stronger, and and you can become this, and you become this. So it's an art in a way, to yeah to find that space and listen to that and put the trust there. And there will be a resistance of the thought system, and say, no, but I have to know this, I have to know this and how to do this. So it's like like a dynamic, and but for me it's like when you take the leap of faith and say, hey, I trust this. I don't know, maybe I don't get an immediate benefit, but I just trust it because I have seen the failed system elsewhere. And then you just take the step into nothingness, but then something will come. But it's not like, many times we're like, oh yeah, if I get this, then I will take the step, But it's not like that. It's the other way around. It's like taking a leap of faith in a way.
Thank you so much. That was very, that was very well explained, and I don't have words to say it, but yeah, it sometimes I even become aware of what's happening. But even as I'm becoming aware of what's happening, there is also the strong pull into, I know it's all part of illusion, but yeah, it just feels so very easy to swing into the thought that just pulls you aside and says you are separate and it's wrong, this is right, and this is good. It just feels so easy to just go with it, rather than unconditionally, uncritically just observe it, but really ask, when I have enough presence, and if I say, okay, that's the thought, I immediately see the charge is lost, and the urge to rush with the thought is lost. And then it's again peace, and it's only the bliss and the experience of it. But it's not always there. And again, as you say, it's not about always being there as if it's some sort of an achievement or a state. It's again the illusion, it's again the separate entity. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's also, as you said, it's like almost by default we are in that state because everything around us, society, the media, our families, friends, colleagues, it's all sort of shouting this other thing. And it takes a lot of courage in a way to say, hold on, but can this all be an illusion, or can all the other people, be wrong, or or is something wrong with me in a way? And it takes a lot of courage to go the path of truth in a way, and be disciplined and radical about it. But as you said, I always point towards, as you said, you were talking about states, that come and go. And what we're talking about here never comes and goes. So as you said, even something gets lost in thoughts, something gets lost in feelings and emotions, but there's always something that's always so. And many times we're looking for this in this which moves and which comes and goes. But then it's good to say, hey, hold on, when you're lost in a thought, the good news is it will also end, and when you're in bliss, that kind of bliss, it will also end, but there's something that's the background of all of that. It's something, that's all of this dualities, all of that is happening in something else, and sort of it's enough to always, in a way, remind yourself maybe that that's what you are. And all the other thing, as I said, it's an illusion, but when we are identified as the action figure, it doesn't seem to be an illusion. It feels real, right? As real as it can get. It's like, in a dream, when you lie in bed and you dream at night, there's a dream world happening. So from the dreamt object, the dreamt person, this dream feels real. And from that perspective, it wouldn't make sense to say, oh, it's all an illusion, I don't care, It's more like, in that dream, it's real. But when you see the big picture, you're like, yeah, I don't know, I just had a car accident in a dream, and then you wake up, we're like, okay, fine, everything is good, It's like that in a way. Because whatever happens in the dream, in that dreamt world, to the dreamt object, it has no effect on the person that's sleeping. And that's exactly how it is in this world. That's the beauty of it. And yeah, sometimes, as you said, we may forget it when the emotions are very intense, but even that will pass,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, there were quite a few questions, so hold on. So there's a few questions here on Instagram. So we will go into a few of those. Think some meditation is required, though, for a while, just to solidify in the self, but it's not like that's it, an aid to get the feel of a sense of self. Then be vigilant of mind when tries. Yeah, exactly. I think meditation or yoga or mindfulness, they can all help. But as I said, when the sense of self takes over, it will take even meditation and yoga as something holy and spiritual, and take it in the wrong way, I think. There's another question. Could you explain a little bit about the Advaita shuffle? I don't know if you're still there, Thomas. Could you explain what you mean exactly? Then there's another one. It's like we're looking for nirvana, which is already there, exactly. One must practice to keep as the self, turn away from the mind. This is 24 hours meditation, not just 1 hour a day. Life is the meditation, but not how you think. I've come to this, you stay only thought. But yeah, in a way, as said, it's not that someone is doing that, because that's the sense of self. It's an awareness, it's like sometimes we believe that we can become more aware or less aware, or it's like an attribute we have to do. It's not like that. It's like, let's say you wake up in the morning and awareness is like there, boom, full on. You can't be like more aware or less aware. I think that's also important. Reject all thoughts. Mind will come in at any chance you give it. So must be the gatekeeper like in Thor. Yes and no, I think as a way, like in a way, yes, it's important that this awareness is like, I think it's about seeing what we're not and pointing out the mechanisms, like to put like a spotlight on the mechanism, what's happening, this hoax, and then just putting it on. But there's nobody doing that. I think that's very important. And then last one, actually Babaji once said he must be vigilant till has last breath. It's not like that's it, then mind will stay away, let it be there, but you're okay with it playing out. It doesn't bother you. Exactly. So anyway, if there's no other questions, then that's it. Thank you very much for joining. And we do these on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Swiss time. So feel free to join. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.